Hello and welcome back to the Compressor Guru. For the next few episodes, the Guru is going to be giving some responses to inquiries from our fans. So it could have been from a comment or a phone call or an email that people had about how they use their air and what is the best way in order to make their air work for them. So without any further ado and me tongue-tying myself, here's the Compressor Guru.
Thank you, camera wife. So I had two phone calls from two different states this week that concerned what eventually turned out to be the problem. And the first one, well, let's just start. I'm going to ask you a trivia question. What do belts do?
They keep your pants from falling down.
Okay, what do belts on a machine do?
They make noise and go around.
Okay, they shouldn't make noise. If they make noise, that's a problem. So the belts transfer energy from the motor to the compressor. And if the belts are loose, they don't transfer the energy and weird things happen. The one guy, the machine was just pumping slow. The other one had a unusual problem. It's how loose the belts were, but it had an unusual problem. So we're going to talk about why the belts work. And then we're going to tell you what the problem was that was so strange. And I brought visual aids. What the belts do is you got a 5 horsepower motor, and the engineers will call it brake horsepower when you're talking about how much energy is being transferred. And I'm not going to talk in engineering terms because I'm not an engineer. But you got to get that 5 horsepower from the motor into the pump. And you do that by putting it through belts. Now there's all different kinds of belts. There's flat belts, there's geared belts, there's V belts. But all of them do the same thing. They transfer the energy from the motor and drive the pump. Belts have to be adjusted properly, and if the belts are loose, you don't get the full energy transferring to the pump. Guys, I know I've said it dozens, maybe 100 times in videos, keep your belts tight. So if your belts come loose, there's different things that will happen. One, they might chirp when it starts up. Actually, my compressor at the shop needs tightened right now. It's still running good, but they chirp a little bit when the machine starts. So I'm actually going to service my own here in the very near future. The other thing that may happen is when it's pumping up, it'll start pumping slow. Instead of a 5 horsepower pumping up at about 8 minutes on an 80-gallon tank, it will take 10 minutes. And you go, wow, wonder why it's pumping a little bit slower. First thing to check is your belts. Make sure they're tight, and they should be about as tight as the alternator belt is on your car. Now, stick around because we're going to talk about the weird problem somebody had from a belt. The next thing that will happen in the accounts of things that happen when belts get loose, I'll occasionally get a phone call. Hey, you got to get out here. My compressor's locking up. What do you mean it's locking up? Well, I turn it on, and as it builds pressure, the pump runs slower. It sounds like it's binding up as it's making pressure. That's a loose belt. And the thing is, the motor runs the same speed all the time. But if the energy doesn't get transferred through that belt, when you build more pressure, it takes more energy to run that compressor at higher pressures, and the belts are slipping, but they don't squeal, and that's what confuses everybody. If those belts are squealing as it's building, they'd probably go, we better tighten those belts. So the compressor sounding like it's binding up and running slower is a sign of a loose belt. Now, what happened this week? Now, I had one of those phone calls I just went through with you about the compressor sounds like it's binding up. I got that phone call. But I got another phone call. And no, it started with an email turned into a phone call, and it was a follow-up email. And here's what happened. The guy calls, or he emails me, he gives me all the description in the email. I think it was a Kellogg compressor, an old one, and as it built pressure, it'd get to 150 pounds, and this is off an Ingersoll, but it's the same principle. When you push this, it unloads. When you push this, it bleeds air out of the tube that goes to the tank and empties between the check valve and the compressor, so the compressor starts easy.
So show me how it moves.
There's a little pin there.
Oh, okay, because I couldn't see. Okay, I can see that now.
Okay.
All right.
So, now that the camera wife can see, and that probably means you can see. Anyway, this isn't what actually gets pushed on. There's a pin that slides inside a housing. Now, what operates that is this. And these are weighted.
What is this?
These are weighted. These are the unloader weights. And when the machine spins, when it gets over 400 RPM or 450 for Ingersoll, these fly out. These are centrifugal. And this is bolted to the end of the crankshaft. See where it's bolted onto the end of the crankshaft?
I can see that.
Okay. So when it's spinning, these fly out. And when these fly out, there's a centerpiece here. And when they fly out, that piece goes in. When that goes in, the valve goes closed. The valve I just held up here.
So that valve fits, that doohickey fits in there?
Well, a pin fits in there that connects to that doohickey.
And then
doohickey is the highly technical term.
And then the pin goes into there.
The pin runs against that piece.
And that's what makes those things fly out.
No.
When it spins.
When it spins, these things fly out because of centrifugal force.
You're kind of confusing me, but I understand the whole it spins and then they go out.
The viewers will understand.
Okay. You know what? I love you. There we go.
Okay.
Let's continue. I'm going to zoom back out. Do I need to still be zoomed
anyway,
in?
when these fly out, that little plate goes in, the valve shuts. When these go in, that plate comes out, the valve opens. So if you can picture these all being together, being connected.
With a pin.
There's a pin between here and there.
But we can't see that pin.
I didn't bring it over, and it's stuck in, the pin's stuck in a plate that this screws into, and...
I hope this is helpful, folks.
Anyway, so this customer, well, he's not a customer because he didn't buy anything. We helped him at no cost. So this guy, he says, when it gets to 150, it starts leaking air out of the bleeder. Do I need a new bleeder? I could have sold him a new bleeder. I'm like, no, your belts are loose. He says, what? And I explained this to him. Didn't need the visual aid you just got. I explained this to him. I says, go tighten your belts up and let me know if the machine works. I got a very pleasant email. Wow, I tightened the belts. This machine works like a brand new machine. Now, it's Kellogg, so it hasn't been manufactured for at least 30 years. This guy was ready to start replacing parts because the symptom was not the cause. Guys, you got to keep your belts tight.
It'll keep your pants up, too.
Yeah, it'll keep your pants up, too.
Sorry, go ahead. Guys, you got to keep your belts tight.
I wear suspenders with dress pants. It's easier on my back. Anyway, so keep your belts tight. Your compressor runs the correct speed, the way it's engineered to. And on this one, I would love to have seen these belts to see how bad they were flopping. That the governor weights would actually close while it's still running and relieve the unloader valve. So this is real simple. Guys, take a screwdriver, check your belt. They should be about as tight as the alternator belt on your car. And I tell you what, keep the questions, phone calls, and comments in the videos coming. We are going to continue to answer your questions, and not only answer your question, but hopefully help some other people too. It's coming up on Christmas. We want to wish everybody a Merry Christmas. You keep going, I'm editing. We want to wish you all Merry Christmas. We thank you. We appreciate you. Keep the questions coming. We've got, I think, 3 episodes where we're answering questions. This is the first. Hit that like and subscribe bell so you get the other ones. God bless. Have a great day. God bless. Have a great day.
It sounded so much better when you weren't burping while you were saying
Yeah,
it. Goodbye, folks.